Have you ever suffered from overthinking? Well, the intention of this video is to take you through a story of somebody who's been overthinking and fortunately was able to find somebody who was able to guide her and then take her through a journey so that she was able to find success at the other end. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is to stay with us, sit back, buckle in and get ready for a little story that's going to show you how you can get yourself out of overthinking. So we're going to tell you a little bit about this young lady. She's single, a single mom, recently been widowed, and she's got kids, but the kids have left home now, so she's all by herself, and she's been going through her grief in her own way. She's gone through the anger stage, she's gone through the denial stages, and now she's wanting to start to build her life. And she was finding that everything that she was trying to do was causing her mind to go into a maelstrom, into a whirlwind of overthinking all the things that could possibly happen. Should she meet somebody else? Are they gonna like the kids? Are the kids gonna like them? Or is she gonna be able to trust them? She's gonna be feeling guilt and shame, the fact that she's thinking about building a life with somebody else again. She knows what she wants. She wants a partner. She wants a partner that's going to listen to her, that's going to complete her, somebody that she's not going to be having to compare to her previous partner, somebody who's going to have compassion for her and not make demands on her. So you can see that she was really looking for somebody that to her felt that he was impossible to find. And with all of these concerns going around trying to find that perfect partner, she was thinking, what if this? What if that? What if her son didn't like him? What if her daughter didn't like him? Okay, so she's going through all these scenarios in her mind where she was just fretting about everything. Now, luckily for her, she was able to find somebody. She found somebody that had gone through a similar situation himself, where he'd gone through a severe loss in his life and the kids had grown up and they've moved on, and he wanted somebody to come into his life, but he'd gone through all those fears and doubts in his time. So what he said to this young lady was that he would, if she was prepared to listen, he was going to tell her how he coped going through all this overthinking stage and how he was able to turn things around for himself. Now, after a bit of toing and froing, she eventually decided that she'd got nothing to lose, so she may as well have a listen to what this guy had got to say. And these are the things that he told her. The first thing he said to her was that he'd had to just accept the situation as it was, because the situation was never going to change. The situation was this, that was it, he was stuck with it, he was going to have to play that hand the best way that he can. So rather than mulling over why did it happen to him, why was he getting all the bad luck all the time, and it was just so unfair, and thinking outside of the box, thinking about all those external factors that were affecting his thought process, he decided that he was going to start thinking about the solutions. How is he going to solve the situation that he's in? And what he found was that then started to focus his mind. He decided that he was going to start challenging his thoughts. So when he found that he was having conversations in his mind that he was never going to be able to find anybody, he started asking, well, where's the evidence in that? Because he'd always been successful in relationships in the past. He'd always had girlfriends and he'd got married. So what evidence was there to say that he was going to be lonely for the rest of his life? And he found that there was no evidence. So therefore, he was just putting all his eggs into one basket, that he was never going to have happiness again. That because he'd been unhappy once, he was going to be unhappy forever. That was his destiny. That was his fate. So he's putting everything into the hands of somebody else, and he wasn't taking responsibility for himself. And when he realised that he wasn't taking responsibility for his own life, that was a massive change for him. However, having said all that, he realised that he couldn't just stop thinking about all these things that he was worrying about. So what he decided he was going to do was, most of these thoughts really started coming just as he was going to go to bed. So he decided that what he was going to do was, after tea time, he was going to give himself half an hour to worry about everything. It really didn't matter what it was. Anything that he was fretting about, he was going to worry. And what he did, he started journaling and he wrote all those worries down in that half hour. And once that half hour was over, he was now going to start thinking about other things. So he wasn't stopping thinking. He wasn't saying you can't think about the worry and the doubt, because that simply doesn't work. You can't just stop it. These thoughts are deep inside you and they're internal. And those internal thoughts are in your subconscious mind, and they will govern you, and they're going to govern your actions. So he gave himself permission to worry, just for a time. Not for the whole time, just for a time. And that gave him control over his thoughts. He'd heard about one of his friends that was getting into mindfulness, who was into yoga and things like this, and this was something that he was never ever going to get involved in, because that was just rubbish. That's something that woo-woo people do. He didn't want to have anything to do with all of that. But he decided that his way wasn't working, so he would have to try something different. The definition of madness is continuing to do the same things and expecting your results to be different. I think it was Einstein who said that. So he realised that he had to change his thought process a little bit and try some different things. So he started to get involved in mindfulness. He started to look at himself and reflect back onto himself and just slow things down. And what he found was that by slowing his mind down, answers came to him. It was as though there was just so much noise going on all the time in the background, with all these thoughts that were pinging all over the place, that the answers were there, but they couldn't be heard. Imagine being in the middle of the Kop at Liverpool, and you've got a voice in the back of your head that's trying to talk to you, but it can't, because they're all singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." And then imagine that the Kop is empty and you're stood there in the Kop all by yourself. And now you can start to hear those voices. And that's what happens with mindfulness. It gets rid of all that chatter, it gets rid of all that noise, and the answers are there, and now you've got a chance to find them. And then another great tool that he found, which was really valuable to him, was to stop himself overthinking all the time. He went out and he got himself busy in other areas of his life. So he found himself new activities to do that he'd always wanted to do, and that gave him another interest, and that meant that he didn't have time to worry about all the things that he'd previously been worrying about. So now all of a sudden he's learning new skills and he's far, far happier. Wow, what a bonus for him. And he explained all these things to this young lady, and he said, if you give it a try, I'll guide you. I'll hold your hand through this and we can work together. And she went, what have I got to lose? So I'm going to say the same thing to you. I'm going to challenge you now. If you're suffering from overthinking everything that you're doing, and I'm not bothered whether you're a girl or a boy or a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. But if you're worried about overthinking everything that you're doing, whether it is going for a new job, whether it is taking on a new hobby, whether it's you should go on holiday, whether you should buy a new house, change your job, it really doesn't matter what it is, okay? All that I've done is I've just shared a story with you, but what I'm going to ask you to do is give it a try. If you want somebody to hold your hand, I'm here for you. I'll help you with your journey. We'll work together and we can help you get through that overthinking so that you've got some focus in the direction on what you want to go in, and then you can start working towards your goal. How does that sound to you? Sounds pretty damn good to me. I nearly didn't tell you. How did the story end up? Well, the story can end two ways. The story can end up where she got her Prince Charming, and that life was wonderful and everything happened, everything lived happily ever after. Okay, that's like Disney. The reality is, though, that maybe not everything is going to turn out just in the way that Disney portrays it. Maybe life gets in the way. Sometimes shit happens. But what she did have was far more peace of mind. Okay? She was able to decide where she was going to be going with her life. She had a happy family around her, and she was satisfied with what she'd got. She was still looking. She knew that her Prince Charming was going to turn up at some point, because you've got no control over that. Okay, love happens when love happens, and she knows that her Prince Charming will come when the time is right. She's surrendered to that fact, so it doesn't matter. She's not going to be lonely. She knows that deep in her heart, and she's happy to move on with her life. Now, which of those two endings sounds the most real to you? Which of those two endings would you want to have? You choose. Now, if you like this video and you like the little story that I created there, please let me know. Let me know what parts of that story resonated with you the most. Let me know if there's any parts of the story that challenged you, challenge your way of thinking. Because we're trying to communicate here, and communication is a two-way thing. So I'm just talking to the camera at the minute, but I'd much rather be speaking to you. That's you who's listening right now. I want to talk to you.